Hello and welcome back to episode 7 on this series on teaching maths to children who are 4 or 4 to 5 year olds. This episode is on number in the 4th half term. I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady and I'm here to share with you what our very best teachers know and do and how they stay so super chilled about their teaching and are never stressed and just really enjoy their maths teaching and manage to make sure that every child thrives and no child has dyscalculia. In this episode, we'll review continuing with the development of the children's knowledge of the numbers to 20, rote counted up and down. We will be talking about doubles and addition for the first time, and we'll focus in on the numbers 12 to 14, which are the focus numbers for this half term. If you've got there, if you haven't got there, don't worry. It's more important to do things thoroughly than to rush. So, numbers to 20. You should now have your daily routines established. However, you've chosen to develop regular routines of counting up to 20 and down from 20, they should be in there now. And in the first half of the year, it's really been about you leading the chanting of those numbers and children joining in as and when they're confident and ready to do so. Now we want to take that a step further and get them ready for counting on their own and having the knowledge deeply inside their own minds. So last time we introduced the idea of counting with fingers and toes. What we want to do now is add in those fingers and toes to their counting. So they're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then bringing their toes into play. I can't really do this in the video, but they're sitting on the mat in front of you and a thumb near both feet, that's an 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So hands near feet are your teen numbers, your 11 to 20 numbers. So we put those in so the children are beginning to connect and really visualise that 10 toes, 5 fingers and 2 ones, that's a 17. Make that connection for themselves. We'll explain a bit later in this episode why that matters so much and why it's so fundamental in maths. And then similarly, when you're counting down, if you're counting people out the rooms, they can do the same. Hands near their feet. 20 is that near their feet. 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's difficult to do, but it's really helpful for them to try to learn. You should have general chaos trying to get that established, but it's going to take them so far in their maths. In the last episode of this series on reception class maths teaching or pre-kindergarten in the US, I'll explain a bit more about why that matters so much, and I just can't emphasize enough that it does. So start to move kids on to introducing fingers and toes, start to try and make them a bit more independent, think about their counting for themselves, because they're going to need to be doing it, every one of them, on their own by the end of the year if they're going to cope next year. Now we're going to talk a little bit about introducing addition and then doubles in this year. So addition, want to bring it in context. Perhaps you've got a family of 3 bears going on a picnic and they meet another 2 bears when they're there, a mummy bear and a baby bear. How many bears are there all together? So you want to start with objects representing the situation you're in, and the assumption is that when you begin, children will touch count each object and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that they know there are 5 altogether and they've got a deep understanding of that situation and what's going on. If you want to, you don't have to do this yet, but by the end of the year you can notate that on the board. 3 plus 2 equals 5. So they get familiar with that being what they've done. And over time, we're trying to nudge children towards the insight that they already know there are 3 there because they counted the 3 when they set that up. So therefore they can go 4, 5. Takes a while. You want to give them loads and loads of opportunities to count all the objects so that they can move on to counting on count on when they're ready and they feel comfortable and confident to do so. There's also the insight that it's more efficient to count on from the larger number, and there's a really nice way that we can introduce that. I'll get to that in just a minute. Secondly, the addition of doubles. So you can do a lot with doubles. Double three, what's double three? We can do it with our fingers and try and count them. We can do it with objects. Double two. Sometimes it's nice to do, lots of children do bunny ears. Class is doing bunny ears and sitting on the floor, so they're trying to imagine their double two and trying to count it in their head. Lots of challenges. They need to do loads and loads of work on those doubles. You may choose to set them up with 10 frames, rearranging the 10 frames specifically for this purpose. Numicon is good for doubles. You can see what's double and what's not double. It's one of the benefits of Numicon. One of the disadvantages, it distracts from the fives and extras or the fives and ones structure, but it's certainly great for doubles. But as ever, a game, as we mentioned in an earlier episode, a game does wonders. So this is our game, all the children sitting around in a circle. This is a game called Double, Double, Bump, Bump. And this game does loads of good things. First of all, children are introduced to dice, and for quite a few of them will be for the first time. So whenever they get a number, they're probably going to have to count the spots, and they'll probably make loads of mistakes. And they need to do that because in life they need to learn to recognise instantly that that's a 5. Instant pattern recognition, directly connecting that. It's an extra representation of 5 that they just need to know. And similarly for 6 and for the others, smaller numbers they should be able to subitize by now. They may not be able to, and if they can't, this is good practice. Anyway, double, double, bump, bump. So you shake the dice into the middle of the room, and the challenge for the class or the child that you pick at random is to add the numbers. So if you've got a result like this, the child may choose to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or the other way round. That's counting all. They may say, oh, I know I've got 1, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, counting on. But then it's more efficient, and you can say this deliberately to help them and talk about it with the class, to say, oh, you know that's 5, so we just have to count on 1 from 5, which is 6. So it's a great context for explicitly taking children on that journey, but you can only nudge them. If they are not ready to count on, you need to give them tons and tons of opportunities to count all. But that's a bit boring as a game. The interest in the game comes when you get a double. So exciting. So double 3. And then everybody gets to jump up off the floor and shout, double, double, bump, bump, double, double, jump, jump, double, double, rump, rump, and you slap your bottom. What can be more exciting when you're 4 or 5 years old? A little bit of bottom in there. Everybody's excited. They love playing this game for that particular reason. And once you've got that out your system, then you can get them to add the double. Double 3 is 6. Double 3 is 6. And you can stop and count it as many times as you want to, as many times as you need to, until they really deeply know their doubles and can just picture them. You can count them in front of them, count them as bunny ears. However you choose to do it, you might want to count them with objects, you might want to stop and count the spots. However you do it is fine. It just needs loads and loads and loads of work. So hopefully that's given you one way of making it really fun and something the kids are going to want to do every day for quite a while you work on through this stage. What else on doubles? You can do your doubles with your ladybird spots and discover your double numbers and your numbers that aren't doubles, and you can do your doubles and your halves together. So double 3 is 6, half of 6 is 3. And we talked in the last episode about creating the visual imagery of halves, which will help them deeply understand what's going on there. So the focus numbers for this half term, your number of the week or the fortnight, are likely to be round about the numbers 12 to 14. And as usual, you want to work through your 10 aspects of each number. So for each of those numbers, can they count that many objects? Can they represent that number with their fingers and toes? Can they represent it in another way as fives and extras? I'll come back to that in a moment. Can they say the number? If you give them that many objects, can they say that number? If you say the number and they're having to pay attention on sound only, so they're not lip reading, do they understand that sound as that number, and can they show you that many objects? Do they understand how to construct the number, draw the digits? Remember the communication for all number cards explained in earlier episodes. Can they read the number? I'll come back to that in a minute as well. Have you explored the meaning of the number with them? What does it mean in their world? When have they come across that number? Can they do one more and one less? Again, use the structure. And can they partition that number? And I'll come back to that too. So, representing the number as fives and extras. So why does it matter so much to show a number as fives and ones? Okay, quick test. How many clothes pegs? How difficult is that to do? Did you manage it? I'm going to show it to you in a different way. Instead of the pegs all being the same colour, we're going to have 5 of one colour, 5 of another colour, 5 of the first colour, and so on until the number's complete. So have a look at this. How many pegs? And hopefully you can now quickly see that that is 16 pegs. It's 5 and 5 and a 5 and a 1. Let's try another test. How many lines? Okay, here's the same number of lines, organised as fives and extras. How many lines? And hopefully that's now quickly 17, whereas previously it was really difficult to count. So these structures are things that we learn without necessarily thinking about, and they're structures that we rely on. Again, I'll explain that more in episode 9, which will be the final episode of this series, how it is so important that this foundation is in place so that children can calculate in the next couple of years of their education. And it's something that's traditionally not paid attention to. It's kind of there in bits of maths education, but no one's paid attention to it systematically like this. And in the schools that I've been working with, what we've found is that no children come through with dyscalculia. Dyscalculia is being unable to think creatively about maths because you don't see it, don't see the underlying structures of it as other people see it. And if we leave that to chance, dyscalculia happens. But if we systematically identify what the key structures of number are, and this fives and extras, fives and ones structure is essential, and systematically ensure that every child learns that structure, then dyscalculia does not exist. Every child becomes confident, provided we use some appropriate questioning strategies too. So it really matters. So I said I'd come back to the structure of fives and extras. You can do it with your fingers and toes. You can do it with the pegs. You can do it with tallies. You can do it with 10 frames. You can do it with a rake and rake. You can do it with a 20 bead string, which would be structured in fives. Anything is fine. It's the same structure. You want at least 2 in, but 2 is usually enough. I also said I'd come back to reading numbers. And I've got another gorgeous resource here. This is from Educational Advantage, and it's the 1 to 20 number beads. And if I just turn those round, they're lovely square beads for children to lace. So it's just a really, really nice, you're working on fine motor skills. You can get them to do colour patterns or let them do colour patterns. But of course, we're going to be trying to get them to put the numbers in order, and they go up to 20. And in a bag, you've got a blue set, a red set, a yellow set and a green set. So great resource. And I also said I'd come back to the partitioning. Children don't really need to know everything about adding and subtracting to 20 at this stage. Thank goodness. The curriculum is pretty mad. It's not quite that mad. But we want to give them a really good understanding of those numbers. So if you're using 10 frames and you're partitioning numbers, you've got one full 10 frame and an extra 3. You simply hold them up, pick a child at random and say, can you split the 13 into 2 numbers? And they might see the 10 and the 3, and then you can turn those 2-sided counters over and show what they've just shown you. Try and find a child to do another one, that kind of thing. Or you can make it much more fun than that in whichever way you choose. But if possible, as part of your work on partitioning, try and give them an opportunity to partition the number within the structure of 5s and extras. So here we might be working on the number 12. Here it is with your pegs again. And it's really easy just to slide different numbers of pegs over so you can see different partitions. Okay, you can try it with fingers and toes if you like, but that's reinforcing all the smaller numbers that you've worked on and helping the children to learn to see them instantly as 5s and extras numbers. That's everything for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, if you found it useful, please share it with your friends. Please subscribe to the channel. Please comment. Comments are hugely valuable. If you've any suggestions for improvement, I love those. I'll always love challenge, be as critical as you like. So please subscribe, like, comment, share. In the next episode, we'll be looking at teaching the characteristics of shape and objects. That's the position, shape, space and measure of maths. And then we'll come back in the final episode, episode 9, and look at the teaching of number in the final term. I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, here to help you love your maths teaching. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. Have a great day.